Well, our military analyst Sean Bell joins us now. Sean, good afternoon to you. So what do we know about what happened last night?
Yeah, good afternoon, Kamali. There's the biggest wave of Russian attacks on Ukraine since the start of the war. President Zelensky says 122 missiles were fired. If you go back to November 22 was the last time that a significant wave, that was 96, less than 100. And even this year, 87 was them. So it's been a huge number of attacks. There have been attacks all the way across the country, from Lviv, just above your head there, on the west side of the country, the capital, Kyiv, Kharkiv, and even down to the south of Odessa. This is Russia demonstrating it can strike anywhere and everywhere. There was a mix of Shahed 136 drones, those slow-speed drones. There was also the ballistic missiles, but there were also some of their hypersonic missiles as well. So Russia was throwing a lot of at the Ukrainians. The casualty figures, they've been rising since we've been on air, but so far we've heard reports 22 have been killed and 86 injured. But when you look at some of the devastation from some of the imagery we're getting, it's very likely that that figure will increase. I mean, the Ukrainian Air Force spokesman said they'd never seen a tirade of this sort of magnitude of simultaneous attacks against infrastructure. And whatever the Russians were targeting, what they were hitting was a maternity hospital, schools and residential areas. So it's caused a lot of carnage on the ground.
It certainly has. And Sean, why launch an attack of this size now, do you think?
Inevitably, that's the question on most people's lips, because you just don't know. Now, clearly, President Putin and his military commanders will know that. But Russia's famously quite short of cruise missiles, and therefore, why would it use a whole belt of them? Three reasons, really. At this time of last year, Russia targeted Ukraine's critical energy infrastructure to try to make life, bluntly, as miserable as possible for the Ukrainians. And it's quite possible that when the Ukrainians in this last year are much more effective at shooting down those missiles, so sometimes it's quite difficult to work out what Russia was targeting, because the wreckage falls elsewhere, and sometimes the warheads, if they survive intact, blow up, so they cause a lot of carnage on the ground. Second one is Russian retribution. You remember the ship that they lost down in the Crimean port only a few days ago. It's quite likely that Russia will feel sore about that. They've lost 20% of their Black Sea fleet so far, and the Ukrainians don't actually have a credible navy, so they will be smarting about that. But the third reason, I suspect, will be the wave of attacks like this are traditionally a precursor for a major ground offensive. Now, it looks very unlikely. Ukraine's tried to do its major offensive over the summer. That's faltered. It's winter. It's not great. But over the last, literally, 48 hours or so, the Russians have been fighting and taken Marinka, which is just down to the south here, of the Donbass. And they are clearly part of the special military operation. They're clearly focused on this whole of this Donbass region. And what we're expecting next is potentially an attack on Kramatorsk. It's all part of that special military operation. It's a clear focus for the Russian forces, and we expect to see that continue over the coming weeks and months.